Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, and joining me once again is Allison.
So say we all.
This is going to be our review of Battlestar Galactica Season 1, Episode 7. It's called 6 Degrees of Separation, so spoilers for the episode, as always. And on this one, Imaginary 6 disappears, but then a real-life 6 appears, and everyone can see her, and hilarity ensues, especially when she tells everyone that Baltar sold out the humans to the Cylons, and then the investigation / witch hunt begins. So that's the gist of this episode. What did you make of this one, Allison?
I thought it was a pretty good one, Peter. I think that the sort of the twist of having a real life 6 there, who Baltar at first thinks is just in his mind. He can't seem to tell the difference. Other than she's wearing much more conservative clothing than the 6 in his mind usually does, is, it's always fun to see Baltar try to weasel his way out of trouble, but that was just a really great moment in this episode.
Yeah, they basically said dress like a librarian for these real life scenes. Yeah, there's some comedy to be had there. The way he kind of comes in and just makes a little, like, I don't even hear what he said, but he makes a little snappy comment, and she's like, "Excuse me?" Like, what did you just say to me? Which comes right after he actually accidentally says something to Dee, because Dee comes to get him to bring him to the command deck, and he basically just adds, like, he's in his mind, like, sort of saying, "Where are you, 6? You've disappeared." And when he hears a knock on the door, he thinks it's in his head, and he just yells out, "Can we please dispense with the foreplay?" And Dee just stands there like, "Excuse me? What?" And as
Classy as always.
Yeah, as always, he is so awkward at trying to talk him way out of it, because I think I would like to think that if and this is a really specific scenario, but if I was in the situation where I had this imaginary, like, person showing up and I accidentally said that sentence in front of someone, I think my excuse would probably be, "Oh, it's an expression, it means let's get to the point. That's all it means. I'm not actually talking about sex." But no, of course he stands there all awkwardly and just being like, "I talked to myself. I swear, I was talking to myself. Please don't send me to HR." So that's how the episode gets kickstarted anyway. And there's more comedy to pursue. I suppose before we even get to, like, the real 6, though, Miss Godfrey, as she is notably called, Imaginary 6 disappears because Baltar refuses to accept the one true God and kind of belittles her beliefs a little bit. And she's like, "You have to accept him." And when he starts making fun of her superstitious drivel, I believe was the phrase he used at one point, she just nopes out of the scene, and he is left on his own without his guidance.
Yes, and he then goes looking for her, and it should be noted that all of these scenes where he initially imagines talking to her is back in his house on Caprica, where we saw him in the first episode of the miniseries, the first part of the miniseries. So we had the sense of him, like, sort of wandering and looking for her throughout the episode. So it was really interesting because seemingly the 6 in his mind couldn't appear at the same time that the Miss Godfrey 6 was appearing on Galactica. Only one could exist at a time. And I feel like that was obviously an intentional choice on their part.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd phrase it as like she couldn't appear when the real 6 was around. I don't know if it's necessarily like a can't. I think it's more of like a thematic thing where, like, she
chose not to.
Yeah, like she shows back up, of course, once he does actually start praying to the one true God and, like, pledging that he will serve the one true God and all that, and then she reappears again. And notably, yeah, by that point in the episode, we never see real 6 ever again. Like, she's disappeared, and it's like, okay, that's pretty interesting. Having said that, this is all burying the lead, because I want to talk about the line of dialogue that made this entire episode, and that is, "No more Mr. Nice Gaius."
Yeah, I wrote that down.
That is gold.
That was a good one.
Absolute gold, especially since he's, like, when he says it's so committed, but he's also really frazzled as he's saying it, so he's really, like, getting a little bit, his temper's going up, but he's also kind of pathetic the way he's just kind of, like, scrambling. He's like, "Oh, that's it, no more Mr. Nice Guys." I don't know, it cracked me up. I liked it. It's almost interesting though, because obviously, all right, she makes all these claims about that he's done all these things, that he has betrayed the human race, and they all start taking her seriously. We have to investigate this and whatnot. But I think it's interesting that once he gets her alone, which is the scene in the bathroom, which is already after a fairly comedic scene where he's like talking to Gaeta through the bathroom like cubicle and like all the awkwardness of that, is that she never drops character. She never like openly says, yeah, you know I'm a Cylon and I know I'm a Cylon. Like, she still plays the Miss Godfrey character the entire time, which does beg the question, does she know she's a Cylon, this Six?
Is she an undercover Cylon? Yeah. I did wonder about that myself throughout the episode, because you're right, she never falls away from that character, and it's a very different performance than we're used to seeing from Trisha Helfner, who is normally this very, seductive, alluring kind of version of the character, whereas Miss Godfrey is very, buttoned up and very serious.
But I will say there is one exception though, and it is before that scene where she does show a little bit of her inner Six, if you will, which is a very good scene in which she tries to seduce Adama, and it's probably my favorite moment of the whole episode. Not the seduction itself, but his reaction to it, because she starts talking about how she was close to the doctor on the other ship that blew up that was going to expose Baltar, and she's saying all these things, and she's like, oh, I was in love with them, and I just wish to have that body next to me again. And she's clearly trying to manipulate Adama. She's trying to seduce him. And when she goes in for the kiss, he just doesn't react to it. But the smash cut to him on the phone saying, okay, Miss Godfrey needs to be watched. Like, look into her past. Who is she? I love that Adama, after 30 seconds of her trying her act, was immediately like, I don't trust her. She is up to something. I can smell this a male off, which is just really funny because obviously Baltar never could.
Well, that's also very true. But and it's kind of also funny that he has to call Ty to give in these orders. And you can tell that Ty has a million questions, but he doesn't ask any of them. Yes. He just puts her under surveillance as is requested. We should maybe mention, though, that the Miss Godfrey character references back to something from the very first episode, 33, when there was this doctor, I think it's Atarak, something like that, who wanted to talk to Roslin, who had information for Roslin. Yeah,
that's what I just brought up, yeah. Like, she was saying she was in love with this doctor that was going to expose Baltar, right? He was on... I can't remember the name of the ship now. The ship that they ultimately blew up because it was the one that was alerting the Cylons to their location. He was on that ship, and she sort of uses that as a backstory to justify why she knows all this. Which, is fine. It works. It fits into the mythology. I'm not sure how I feel about her mysteriously disappearing at the end. It's almost as if she was mystical, because she doesn't have to be mystical. She could just be like a human Cylon in the fleet that, is making her presence feel known at this point, but no one other than Baltar knows that this particular appearance is that of a Cylon. I don't know if we need to do the whole, maybe even the real one was mystical. She's left her glasses behind. Oh, where did she go? I don't know if I needed that part of it, but I did like all of the kind of the, like, Baltar, like, being just desperately wanting to yell out, she's a Cylon, she's a Cylon. I can't explain why I know that, but she's definitely a Cylon.
You know what? He had absolutely the perfect opportunity to do that. At the very first moment he sees her and realizes that other people can see her too. What he says is, I've never seen her before in my life. He could have said, wait a second, you were with me on Caprica right before the Cylons attacked. And I don't think you could have made it out. Are you a Cylon agent? Are you one of the human Cylons? Like, if he was as quick thinking as he pretends to be, he had a perfect out there.
No, I agree. I mean, there's definitely multiple points in Baltar's story, I think, even before this episode, where it's like, oh, if you actually stop and think about this opportunity for a second, you might have actually came up with something a little bit better than just staring into their eyes and hoping they don't know the signs mumbo jumbo that you're spitting at them and hoping for the best. But no, I mean, all of this was entertaining. Him like getting more and more panicked, trying to like eventually sets off a fire alarm to sneak into the, which actually, this is the one thing we've not talked about yet in terms of the main like MacGuffin here. And it, you know what, I'm going to critique this a little bit because it is a TV trope to have the photograph that can be enhanced so we can see a reflection of someone's face. This is bullshit. Now, I know you're saying they're in space. This is a sci-fi show. They've got better technology or whatever.
Obviously, the futuristic technology will allow them to enhance and develop that photo better. Yeah.
But I mean, anyone who knows why that wouldn't work also doesn't think that, you know, I mean, I suppose the closest thing you could say is that, oh, maybe AI could fill it in and maybe you could accept that. But yeah, so it's a little bit of an eye roll of like, okay, this is going to be the central MacGuffin, is that they're going to clear up this photo of what's supposed to be Baltar planting a bomb, which is interesting because we know he didn't do that, right? Because for all the things he's guilty of, he never actively did this kind of thing. So he don't, because I actually loved his response to that when she's like, hey, we've got this footage of him going into the server room and planting an explosive. I love the way he yells out, I definitely didn't do that, as if everything else she said might technically be true, but this one thing she's saying is definitely not true.
No, because in the initial sort of, Miss Godfrey has made some accusations against him, mentions, you know, something about the defense mainframe, which he did give Six on Caprica access to the defense mainframe. So he really is guilty of what was originally hinted at, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to stick up for him. I will at least give him the one asterisk that, you know, he didn't know what he was doing exactly. I mean, he's guilty of being an idiot for sure. He's guilty of opening the doors to someone that he shouldn't have. He never knowingly helped commit genocide, though. That's not something he knew about, at the very least. So I'll give him that little shred of, you know, credit. I don't know if that's the right word. But
I don't know if that's the right word either, but okay.
Yeah. You know, he didn't agree to what they were doing at the very least. But that said, though, he still should feel guilty for numerous reasons. But I love that delivery of, I definitely didn't do that. As if, so everything else that's been brought up, though, all that's, like, you know, possible. But that's one thing is definitely bullshit. But yeah, so he you know, tries to get in there to damage everything. He sets off a fire alarm so he can sneak in and try and pull out all the cords and all that, and it doesn't work very well. They catch him in the act, and ultimately it's just Gaeta trying again to see if it's a fake that he ultimately proves, oh yeah, this is doctored, this is a complete fake. It wasn't clear until our fancy computers like finished rendering everything, so then we could see the evidence that it's been tampered with, and it gets him off scot-free, which is interesting. Because Rosalind, when she thinks he's guilty, basically says, yeah, this just sounds right. Like, I can feel it in my gut. She comes to see him and just says, yeah, I think this is all true. There's something about you that just rubs me the wrong way. So she has to backtrack that at the end and go out in a press conference and be like, yes, I'm exonerating Gaius Baltar. He's clearly 100% a good guy. He's on our side. Everyone clap and, you know, take your photographs.
Yeah, it was really kind of funny, actually, when Rosalind said, yeah, it just sort of feels right to me that you might be involved with this. You know, you could almost hear the rest of it, which is like, because you're such a squirrely bastard most of the time. No, and he had tried to, we'll get to this in a bit, but he had earlier kind of tried to first tell Rosalind and then tell Adama that Miss Godfrey might be a Cylon agent or might be a human Cylon model. And unfortunately, you know, it comes off as a little bit desperate when he's doing that, when I think if he had come up immediately and said she's a Cylon, maybe they would have believed him. I do have to ask you, though, did you notice the, I'm sure you appreciated the shape of the disc when she handed over the evidence?
Oh, that was music to my eyes, frankly. It was seeing this
love it.
octagon-shaped CD was beautiful. Of course, even the circular objects have got their corners cut off just to be extra weird about it. No, that was great. Yeah. That was great stuff. No, you're right though. He sounds more desperate, but that's what makes it even funnier to us though, is because we know this is absolutely correct. We know he's right. Like, we know she's a Cylon, but they're all going to think he sounds desperate, and it sounds like he's trying to dig himself out of a grave. But here she is. So perfect. I liked all the main plot is, other than relying on the trope of like enhancing the image, right? That's the one nitpick I can throw at it. Everything else about the main plot is very satisfying. This idea of like, because I guess the one thing you have to sort of bring up here in this idea that, you know, his imaginary six leaves him because he refuses to accept what she's saying is God, but then she returns once he accepts it. It's hard not to just kind of see her then in his head as a, I don't know, like literally like his connection to God himself. Like, from like Gaius' own connection to God, because it's all been filtered through this imaginary six. So she returns once he accepts that. I don't know. It's an interesting thing, especially if we're just going into the impression now that she is just in his head, that this is not being beamed to him from other Cylons. It's not something that the six that was with him left behind. It is just a manifestation in his own head. And if that's the case, then it is very interesting that, when she chooses to come back, and when she comes back, not only is she like, gung-ho about, okay, let's go up and have sex, when they're going up the stairs and she's being all seductive, they literally do like, it's getting blindingly white as we get to the door, like the sunlight's coming in through the door and it's hitting the white paint on the wall, so it's almost like going through the pearly gates, right? To the bedroom to have sex with her. That's exactly like the vibe they're trying to give it, as if now he's a God-loving, born again individual. He's went through the abyss into the other side, and he's been reborn. So
yeah, somehow I'm not sure that's where Baltar is going to end up, just for the record. But
that's completely fair. But this is what he thinks in his head. This is not necessarily how it's all actually working, to be fair.
Yeah, I would also maybe nitpick a tiny bit that this is actually very much a mirror of, I think it was the plot in episode 1, when he is denying God to Six, and then he finally kind of says, okay, fine, I believe, when he's in a desperate situation and needs to be saved, and they decide to blow up the Olympic Carrier, I believe was the name of the ship. I look back.
That sounds right. Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think maybe the way you could look at it is that this is like a heightened version of that, where, okay, he had that moment in episode 1, but now he's gotten comfortable and he's become more, defiant against this godlike idea in his head. And this is like, okay, well, we're going to really have to scare you this time then. So we're going to make it look like you're guilty and you're going to be put on trial, or not even on trial. You're in the brig thinking you're going to get executed for treason. Like, that's the... And because even Adama says to him, if this turns out to be true, and if this is your photograph in this video file, like, everything you've worked on is getting quarantined and dismantled. Like, we are not even, like, taking a chance of anything that you've touched. And everything you've done is meaningless. Which also kind of, I think, fits into a general idea of why people turn to religion, is the idea that their life mattered and meant something. So this idea that, we're going to, like, completely, like, devalue and discredit everything you've ever done, if this turns out to be the case, I think plays into those kind of like more raw ideas. There are always there, even without the sci-fi elements that this show brings to the table. So, it's very interesting and fun stuff. You mentioned, obviously, him trying to talk to Rosalind earlier in the episode. The reason why she never hears that, of course, is because she passes out on the phone, has a bit of a health scare, which... is obviously her cancer. It turns out she's taken a bit too much medication than she was supposed to, and the doctor grills her for it.
3 times the dosage.
Yep. Which, he's not very thrilled about, but does tell her that, hey, there's going to come a day where you can't hide this anymore. Like, it's going to be impossible. And the fact that today people heard you need to see a doctor, there's already a press circus outside making noise. So she's on a clock, right? She was always on a clock, but this is kind of like further amping that up and saying, you're really on a clock until everyone knows about this.
Yes. And she basically just says, give me a shot of adrenaline or whatever, get me back out there. I don't want to deal with it now, which probably is not going to be the way to treat cancer. But
does not sound healthy. Yeah. And there's a little joke at the end as well when she rolls up her sleeve and he's like, it's not that kind of shot. And she looks concerned about where that needle's going. So a little bit of humor. Speaking of people the doctor's seeing, though, we got Starbuck this episode. Try to get back on her feet and struggling. And
it's difficult.
Yeah, she's given up. And this is kind of coinciding with a sort of subplot that's related with the chief trying to get the raptor, or sorry, not the raptor, the razor. Raider, thank you. I was like looking for the word. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, the silent raider. Yeah, she
trying to figure out how to get it working, And I'm not really too surprised to hear that Starbucks notes were kind of a mess and not clearly explaining anything. But again, when you get inside that ship, it's not like any ship they've ever seen before. It's entirely sort of biological and very gross seeming. And there's all kinds of veins or thingies hanging down all over the place. So it has that very like you're crawling into the abyss or the beast or whatever kind of feel to it.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed just the sort of the light sense of humor of like the chief being inside there and complaining, whilst Callie and like Ty eventually is outside the ship, kind of like asking him how things are going. And it's ultimately Ty who goes to Starbuck, and he basically uses reverse psychology, and she recognizes that, and she's like, "You really think that reverse psychology crap's going to work and making me get back on my feet?" And then he just sort of puts a stinger on the end, and this obviously works because of their relationship thus far on the show. Mm-hmm. But he's like, every day you keep lying in that bed, you're just reinforcing that I was right about what I thought about you. And he just smirks and walks out. And it's like, okay, she's getting up in like 5 seconds after that line. She can't let Ty win. It's not an option. It's not a possibility. So, yeah. And that's pretty much it. She goes to the raider and like gets inside and starts, hitting things and gets it turned on. And that's about it.
Remembering.
Yeah.
There was one little other interesting part of this Raider plotline, which is that Sharon or Boomer shows up on the hangar deck, Sharon, and kind of strokes the Raider and sort of says to the chief that maybe you should think of it more like a pet. Maybe it was engineered for its task. Maybe you shouldn't think of it as a thing. And you can tell that there's almost an affection there. Maybe there's some deep subconscious programming going on.
I mean, yeah, she seems to kind of react to it. The use of the word stroke there really caught me off guard. Yeah, she definitely caresses. She caresses it. She kind of like starts to like lovingly like it's a horse almost, and starts to pat it on the side and running her fingers over it. And obviously the chief's watching this, being like, "What's happening? What is this? Some sort of weird new fetish that I'm like, what's going on?" And then eventually when she's like said, "Oh, treat it like an animal," and she's like, "Well, that's my guess anyway," and he's like, "I guess," and she's like, "Yeah, that's right, I guess," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, right." He's clearly noticing some stuff here. This is very, very suspicious, if you will. So, or sus, as you like to say, since you're hip with the kids. But
well.
Which, to be fair, it's not the first time that word popped out of my head in this episode. But when Adama like made that call after the attempted kiss, I was like, "Oh, he thinks she's sus." Like that's what this is. He's immediately like, "She's sus. She's sus. Everyone, keep watching her." Yeah, but I mean the let me go.
No, go ahead. Finish what you were going to say, because I was going to just deflect on another point.
Well, I was going to say that this kind of wraps up with the like her finding the mirror in her bunk that says Cylon written on it, and it's like, who wrote that? You know?
So it's in her locker, actually, not in her bunk, and it's a Cylon on the mirror. And I had to wonder, did she actually do that herself, subconsciously? Because how would anybody else even sort of know that's playing away at her consciousness other than the chief? And I don't think he's going to torment her.
No, the only other possibility would be Miss Godfrey 6. Is for some reason she would want to like try and trigger her to go into Cylon mode or something. That's the only other explanation I can think of is her. But yeah, no, I mean, I think her doing it herself when she's not conscious is the most likely explanation. But
like we saw in the water episode where she did all that bombing stuff when she was also not conscious. So clearly there's some subterfuge programming there that they can activate. But are the Cylons really looking for the fleet, or are they just letting them go? Because if they have the ability to remote trigger Boomer, surely
they can track her. Yeah.
Yeah, or force her to give over the location or something.
You would assume so. So I mean, yeah, it does, which makes me think they are looking for the fleet, but they're not activating her manually with this. It's more something that's kicking in from like just like internal programming. If I was to try and make a guess right now, I think the more interesting thing about this sequence, though, where she finds this word Cylon on her mirror, is the fact that it intercuts with the Sharon on Earth having sex with Hilo. I know we've not talked about that plotline. I mean, that's basically the whole plotline, to be honest. But is that it's kind of like she's discovering she's more of a robot at the same time that arguably Sharon on Caprica is becoming more human, if you want to read it that way, because they were intentionally cutting between them at the same time there, which I thought was a notable choice.
Yeah, Hilo kind of admits that he's had feelings for her for a while, and that he respected her relationship with Tyrell, and sort of wouldn't have taken action on it. He said something like, "Oh, but I knew about you and the chief," and she says, "Oh, I think everybody did." And he says, it kind of struck me as really sweet. There were so many times I wish I could just be him instead. And she makes the move on him, and they start kissing, and then things progress in the thunderstorm.
Yeah, I was going to say, as lightning strikes as they kiss for the first time, it's very, very dramatic. May I add? Other than that, there was just some hiding from some Cylon robots earlier in the episode. It wasn't anything too in depth. I mean, they go straight to sex, but don't get me wrong, they're in a really dramatic situation. They might die any day now, so why not? Go for it. Do the whole thing. But like, they're immediately naked in a thunderstorm going at it.
Yeah, I think they could have found a slightly better location. But I guess heightened emotions in such a serious crisis, and they have been operating. It's like day 24, I think, when the text comes up. So, for several weeks straight, they've been on this adrenaline high.
Honestly, at this point, when that text comes up saying how many days it's been, I don't even notice it anymore, because it's every time. So I just, like, my brain's filtering it out at this point. But I mean, it's progressing. It makes sense. She is building an attachment to him. And I think, obviously I have knowledge of the later show because this is a rewatch, and I we don't spoil things from the future. I will say, I think even on my initial viewing, though, at this point, I was kind of assuming that the story here was going to be that she is going to actually care about him, and that's like where we're going with this. And I think the way she goes in for the kiss as soon as he says what he says is the first big sign of that. It's like, hey, she feels something, and she did that in the moment. Now, maybe she's supposed to gain his romantic trust and feelings, and that's fair, but like the way she just immediately does it felt like, no, she cares. Like, she wanted to kiss him in that moment. So.
Yeah, and I think I said this when we were talking about last week's episode. The relationship between Boomer and the chief never really clicked for me. They I don't know, I guess I didn't feel like they had the same chemistry that I think the Sharon on Caprica does with Hilo.
That's fair. I think part of it as well is because they started already in a romance, so you didn't really get to see any of the build to it, whereas this one, it's like, no, you see the feelings kind of like there and developing, and so there's a bit more like meaning behind it once it actually happens. Not to mention the fact that Boomer and Chief like seem to like half the time be like not very pleasant to each other, so it's not like they were happy for much of their time together. So
seemingly not.
Yeah. But is there anything else in this episode that we should touch on?
I just wanted to go back and note that at the end of the Baltar 6 sort of plot, she basically says, "You're bulletproof now. This was a trial by fire. You've been tested and found that no, you couldn't possibly have had anything to do with the Cylon, bombing and, crashing of the defense mainframe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And that was sort of the whole point of putting him through this, according to what she hints at there.
And if that's true, that means that, yes, other Cylons who are in the fleet, like, that other 6 intentionally did this to help with that. So that does suggest that what they've got planned for Baltar is part of Cylon plans, regardless of whether or not the 6 in his head is actually just his manifestation or is there. But it's a good point though. Like, he's less suspicious now because like they put a magnifying glass over him and he seemingly was proven to be innocent. Which, I mean, he was innocent of that bomb thing. We knew that wasn't true. But to go back to what you said earlier, I definitely didn't do that. That one thing in particular, I didn't do that. So. Yeah. But hey, I think it's a good episode. I think I enjoyed it more than last week's episode for sure. So the odd numbered episodes being the better ones, I think is still true for me. Having said that, next week's has a pretty strong rating on IMDb. So here's here's hoping the even numbered like I don't want to say curse because curse implies really bad. They're not been bad. They're just not been as good. So
no.
I'll say the even number streak of mediocrity. Even that sounds too harsh.
Yeah. But it's like we've got the 7.5s and the 8s versus the 9s and the 9.5s and the 10s. You know? It's like my students who were always, I got an 85 on this. What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. There's just room for it to be a little better.
Very good. Very good. So yes, that is our thoughts.
I know I'm a damn school teacher.
I didn't say it.
I can hear your thoughts loud and clear.
But that's our review of this episode of Battlestar Galactica. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. You can like, subscribe, all that stuff helps out a bunch on YouTube. And of course, you can support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and check out the movie channel MailFuzz Movies for all the movie podcasts. But otherwise, that is us. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?